Nico, welcome to Entrepreneur Money Stories.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's great to be here.
Let's jump right in. Can you tell the audience, what is your mission in the world today? Like, what do you do and why are you doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up with a family that was in medicine. My grandfather was a retired physician, and he actually owned his own family practice. And it was just a dream of mine to go into medicine in some way, shape, or form. I ended up going into nursing and then becoming a nurse practitioner by trade. And my vision was always, how can I serve my community? I always saw him doing that, and he was just an amazing role model for that. One of the things I saw that I think he, in hindsight, kind of didn't see was that medicine was becoming this behemoth that I think everybody experiences today, which is, your 5 to 10 minute appointments, and your doctor, nurse practitioner, whoever doesn't really have the time to see you. A lot of times they're following these kind of guidelines that maybe aren't necessarily always in your best interest, but in the interest of these big insurance companies and all that stuff. So one of the things I really wanted to do was take it back to a really grassroots type of practice and clinic where, I spent hours with my patients, and we developed these really amazing, relationships.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, in my practice, our mission is to, serve our community, but bring back the kind of healthcare that people crave, which is just a relationship with each other and finding ways and different alternative ways to, support everybody's health and wellness, not necessarily just through even medications, even just diet and lifestyle and supplements and things like that.
Well, that's a really beautiful mission. I appreciate you sharing that. And I love that you are mission driven and, how you are showing up is really for your community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. When we see something in our industries, that's why we do what we do at Kickstart Accounting, is because we've been so called to say, there's something broken in this industry. How do we fix it? And I love that you've done that too. As business owners, I think that we are, it's hard for us to manage, how do we take care of ourselves while we are caring for our clients, right? Our customers, our teams as we continue to grow, our children, our families. So how have you, as you've continued to grow, paid attention to your own health, and how do you help your clients pay attention to their health?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been a believer that if you are following things that really matter to you at the end of the day, whether they're your passions like business, whether it's your health and wellness, that things will just organically grow in the best versions of themselves. And so for my health, it generally kind of comes first. I even tell my patients, like, sometimes it kind of comes before my job and my career and helping you and helping my family, because I know at the end of the day, I'm worse off for my family and my community if my health is not up to speed. And I think again, we even see this in modern medicine, right? I always have patients like, well, my doctor's like 300 pounds, but he's telling me to lose weight, right? And it's like, well, and I think you do this really well with your team. I mean, you kind of walk the walk, right? It's important that people see you doing your best. And, I will curtail answering those emails or taking those phone calls, because I know I have to get an hour's work of whatever my health and wellness thing is, whether that's, I go to the sauna or I spend time, lifting weights or taking a hike with the family. All of those things I purposely try to incorporate throughout my week. And I know that my business will be better in the long run because of that, even though I might be, again, curtailing or skirting around some things that could be done in that moment. I know that 10 or 20 years from now, it's going to make a better business and a better place for my personal health and wellness.
Yeah. For the business owner who's thinking, I hear you guys, but I, in my hustle culture, want to be the first one to get back to that client. And I want to be the first one. Like I can't step away from my computer because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something, or I need to be constantly leaning in. And I think that that's a mindset shift. But what are like the one or two things that you can say to that person who's struggling finding that balance?
Yeah, I think you hit it. I mean, it's a scarcity mindset at the end of the day. And I hear this from people who come and follow me in the clinic. They're like, oh my gosh, Nico, these phone calls you need to get back to, and these emails. There's always going to be people who need your help. Again, as long as you're pursuing your passions and as long as you're bringing the best of yourself to the table, I don't really see a way that you're going to lose. I think that the hustle culture is, there's no question that you need to work hard and you need to get up early and you need to, but I think it's just a matter of discipline again. Is it a scarcity mindset thing where you're afraid that you can't make enough money or can't grow quickly enough if you don't get back to these people? Or is it, I'm not disciplined enough to wake up at maybe 5 a.m. so I can sneak a little extra health and wellness stuff in, but maybe I need to go to bed at 9 or 9:30.
We go to bed here like ridiculously early. So my team knows if they need something from me, you got to message me before 8:30 because I am like out like a light before 9 a.m.
Yeah. I mean, my phone shuts off at the same thing. My phone totally shuts off at, 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's over with. My brain can't handle anymore anyways. So, but I do. I think in that hustle culture, you hear these guys, I wake up at 4 a.m. and then I go to bed at 2 a.m. And it's like, okay, there are always going to be people who do that, and maybe they can do that. But the reality is, I think most of us who have traversed this area know that you're just going to burn out. The real balance is finding some discipline and recognizing, picking up on some of those mindset things. Do I have a scarcity mindset? Am I afraid that I'm just going to fail because I'm not working 15 hours a day? I think reality speaks otherwise.
Let's stay on mindset for a minute here. As you have started your practice, there's so many mindset shifts because I think especially in your field, you could have gone into a more traditional, I'm going to do air quote, safe position, and you chose this route. So what are some of the mindset shifts that you needed to make in pursuing this independence?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think speaking to safety, I grew up in a very safe environment, right? Where my dad, hey, you need to get a college job or a college degree rather, and then you need to get a W-2 job and you need to work for someone else and get the healthcare and benefits and be safe. That was constantly drilled into my head. And I think that most of us just need to recognize that safety is kind of an illusion, right? Things happen. Companies go out of business, out of the blue, or they get bought up and now you're shifting over to someone else. So that was a huge one for me, was recognizing that just because something seems safe, it doesn't mean it inherently is so. When I kind of released that idea and recognized that people are very, very interested in what I'm doing and what we're doing in the community, they kind of came in droves, and it's been amazing. So I think that was a big part. And frankly, I had a total scarcity mindset. Is there ever enough people? Are people really going to pay this much? Am I good enough for that? And all of those things, once you kind of let that idea go, it's amazing what kind of comes from, the market speaks for itself, as you've probably experienced, right? And the market had been knocking on my door for probably a decade before I really, truly released some of those thoughts and ideas. And, now it's to a point where I'm like, gosh, I'm almost too busy to handle things. So
yeah. So you kind of had to pound on your door in order for you to listen, huh?
There's no question. There's no question. I mean, I'll tell you, my wife has been a huge support. She's an RN as well, and she's amazing. And she's always been a little bit more of a like, just go out and get that. Like, that's okay. You can do this. We'll be fine. And I tell everybody, like, if you don't have someone in your corner that's saying those kinds of things, it can be really challenging. Because my family, God love them, and they love me, and all they wanted was me to be safe. And, I appreciated their thoughts, but it kind of, it's in the back of your head all the time. Is this a good idea? My dad doesn't think this is a good idea, or maybe my mom doesn't. Anyways, having that mentor or that support person in your family who is saying, Nico, it's okay. It's going to be fine. We can do this. I think that's key. I think it's really, really important.
How have you kept your money mindset strong as you've looked to grow? We were talking a little bit before we hit record about, do you continue to scale and go national with your services? How are you keeping your money mindset strong and making those decisions?
Yeah. My wife and I had deep, deep conversations about that from the beginning. I think it's important, to recognize the vision and the mission, and also your personality type. I know that I'm not the kind of guy that wants to own 50 clinics nationwide. It's never really been a big thing for me. I've always been a bookworm, and I love my patient-to-patient interaction. I would do this stuff for free, frankly. That's how much I really like it. So, I recognize I'm not this maybe typical assertive guy. I'm a little bit more friendly and open-minded, and I love the education aspect. So, what we're kind of trying to develop a little bit more now is let's make this practice as high quality as possible. Let's make that the driving force. We are going to slowly start hiring on some other providers here soon in the next couple months and slowly grow there. But another aspect we're going to shift over to is the education piece. A lot of nurse practitioners want to know, hey, how did you start this clinic? What do you do, in terms of, hormone replacement therapy or some different things that you just really don't learn enough about in school, or maybe at all. So for me, I find a lot of passion there. And again, the market is kind of speaking to me. I have people reaching out, asking me these things. And so I think that's probably where I'm going to kind of start growing. My money mindset will be focused on having a fantastic practice. And if we slowly grow that and it's kind of organic, then great. But we'll really, really focus a lot on the education pieces and bringing the industry up as a whole in general.
Have you heard yourself saying, I'm scared to invest money in my business because what if it doesn't come back? I don't know how much to pay myself, so I won't take a paycheck yet. I'm reinvesting in the business anyway. Or how about, I'm not going to spend any more money until I know exactly where my money is going. Well, let me tell you, you are not alone. In fact, we have heard all of these stories and more throughout the last 9 years at Kickstart Accounting Inc. And that is why we have created the Money Mindset Mastery Framework to finally unlock and overcome these stories, to finally feel confident in your financial decisions and pay yourself what you deserve. The first step to create a profitable and successful business is to first understand your money mindset. Find out your money mindset personality type by going to kickstartaccountinginc.com/quiz. I can't wait to hear what your money mindset type is. I think what you touched on there that I think is the most important piece is that you know what your personality is, you know what your intentions are, and staying really true to the mission. I think as we grow, we can get really caught up in the excitement of growth and forget, why did we start this? What are we doing here? So I just appreciate your sticking to that intention and that core value.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends. Sorry, not to cut you off. I just to speak to that just a little bit more, because I recognize that I have a lot of colleagues who are doing fantastic. I mean, they're $1 million clinics, they're nationwide, telehealth, all that kind of stuff, and our personalities couldn't be any more different. They're a very different breed of person, and I love that. I mean, it's amazing to see the growth and all that they've had. But on the flip side, they think, they kind of look at me like, oh, education. Oh gosh, I don't want to do that. That sounds terrible, So it's just funny, but I think a lot of people miss that. I think everybody thinks, oh, I have to be this like Elon Musk and have 20 different companies and fly around internationally. If that's not your personality, you really shouldn't. I think it would be a bad idea to get into that you're going to lose on that front.
Yeah, know who you are, stay true to your core values. It's a really beautiful thing. I think it would be a disservice if we don't touch for the audience why is what you do so different? Like, what is functional medicine versus calling our doctor? You're here in Ohio, so a lot of us call up the Cleveland Clinic, university hospitals. What is the difference when clients come to see you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Most people recognize that conventional medicine or traditional medicine is unbelievable when it comes to acute care. If you get into a car accident or you break your leg or you're, something horrendous like that, there's no question that modern medicine absolutely just crushes it. If you go to just about any emergency room in the nation, you're going to have really high quality care. And pain medicine and all that kind of stuff is unbelievable. Where we really suffer, and I think a lot of people recognize this, is on the kind of more chronic side of things when we're dealing with things like.
Do people recognize it?
I don't know. I think people are growing. I think people are growing to recognize it. I really do. I think, ironically, I tell people this, and I'm not being facetious, but COVID was like the best thing that ever happened, because I think a lot of people started to recognize, like, oh my gosh, there's all these things like I'm overweight or I have high blood pressure, or, and there was a lot of information flying around, and what should I be doing to make sure that I'm taking care of myself? And so I feel like that really exploded this integrative and functional medicine space. And what it really is at the end of the day is getting down to the root cause of some of these issues that people are experiencing. For example, high blood pressure is just a symptom. It's not just a disease that flies out of nowhere. And there's obvious things, right? You smoke or you drink too much or eat too much, but there's some not so obvious things. You have a slight genetic disorder called MTHFR, and that raises homocysteine. And these are things that are not taught in school, whether med school or NP school or any of these schools. We don't really have the time to dedicate to that stuff. A lot of these schools are kind of captured in many ways by certain organizations, and that's just how the cookie has kind of crumbled. So in the functional medicine world, we kind of allow patients to finally get back to, I always tell people it's like they're telling us the story again. They're giving us their narrative of what have they experienced. We start here at the clinic, we start asking people like, how were you born? Like, it sounds kind of crazy. How many medications did you take when you were a little kid? Did you have asthma growing up? Did your, father and mother have an abusive relationship?
Starts in our history. So I love that you're saying that, because when we talk about money mindset around here, like, you didn't just all of a sudden develop money mindset today. You know what I mean? That started from what happened as a child. And we all just think we're supposed to arrive in entrepreneurship. Like, yes, damn, I'm great. Right. This is going to be great. But it's the same thing with our health. Yeah. Yeah.
It's so true. And patients, I find that, again, most problems that we see in the clinic, they're not as big and arduous and scary as people think. Sometimes they're rather simple. It's just, again, we lack the ability to gather that real narrative and story in a primary care office. We have 10 minutes to spend with you. We cannot afford any more time. Even the lab tests that we look at, they're very, very, very minimal. I have patients ask me all the time, hey, I just went to our primary care. Is my blood work? Is this good? And I kind of say, this is like it's the least helpful thing I could look at. It's almost like someone just showing you your bank account statement, telling them like, hey, can you make something out of this? And you're like, I don't know. Like, could you tell me a little bit of it? What's your job? Like, does your wife work? What are your bills like? That is what primary care does. It's just putting out fires, and slowly these problems just continue to build. I think people are recognizing that part. I think they're kind of sick of it and they're looking for some alternatives. But in our practice, we start there and grow from there. So we do very, very extensive testing, and we make sure that we're kind of leaving no stone left unturned. And again, the only way you could really do that is by getting a really, really good foundation on that person.
What if that sounds scary to somebody? Like, to me, it sounds very exciting. I was very frustrated a few years ago. I had gotten some lab work done, and I brought it to my doctor's appointment with me, and he just said, "Yeah, see, everything is in the green.
Yeah,
you're good." And I was like, "Alrighty, thank you." I don't really feel like we had a discussion here. What do you do with that? Like, what do you do if you're scared to think outside the box?
From a patient's perspective?
From a patient's perspective, yeah.
It's a good question. I think that most patients coming here are coming from a place of really severe frustration. Most patients, if they're feeling well and healthy and all that otherwise, the regular primary care ward really isn't a big deal. But most patients coming here, they're chronically fatigued, literally sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they've been schlepped around to different specialties, and everybody says you're normal. Everything's normal. Everything looks great. It must be in your head. Go see a therapist, try an antidepressant. And people get really sick of that. And so when they end up to me, it's kind of like, dude, we've done everything. We saw endocrinology. We saw primary care. We went to Cleveland Clinic maybe to get a full workup. And everybody says my labs are normal. And so we dissect that very, very, very intensely. But I think people do come in here feeling a little overwhelmed. And a lot of the stuff we're going over can feel overwhelming. But at the end of the day, our job here at Apollo is to give people hope and to make sure that they're leaving in a place of certainty and a place of confidence. Like, okay, finally, the things that I'm experiencing aren't all in my head. They're real. There's objective measures that we're going to look at, and there's something we can do about it. I think for many patients, if they feel nervous or scared, it's even better. I sit down for an hour with you and we just shoot the breeze a little bit, right? I want to ask you about your job and your family and your friends and how are things going in your personal life. And it's funny because I always say there's lots of tears and laughs shared in the office. And we miss that a lot in primary care. It's amazing how many patients are like, oh my God, I was divorced, a couple of years ago and I just haven't really gotten over it. And we can talk through that. It's amazing how much high blood pressure and divorce can have in common, so those things, we do not let those go amiss. And I think, again, speaking to those patients who feel nervous or uncomfortable, I think when you come in and you get an hour with me and whoever else is in the clinic, it's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. I love that, hearing that people can come in and feel so kind of lost and confused and walk out feeling like confident and hopeful. I think that's very similar to the transformation that our clients feel, because accounting is scary, health is scary, right? Like, these are big things. Like, this is a heavy conversation for people. And to finally come to a place where it's like, all right, I can actually have a conversation about this and not be judged, right? Like, we're having a conversation in a place that I can receive hope and I can receive confidence.
Yeah, there's no question.
Is there anything that you can think of that a listener, if they're listening and they're maybe struggling with their health, or they're struggling to make time as a business owner, just the whole thing feels so overwhelming to them? Like, what's like one or two things that they can go out and do? Like, I love to give people action at the end of every episode so that, like, this isn't just theory. Like, go do something right now to make this a little bit easier for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, action in general is the best thing you can do, right? If you're anxious or overwhelmed or anything like that. So many people think of health as like, I think Instagram kind of ruined this for people. It's like, oh, I got to get in the sauna for 30 minutes and then journal for 40 minutes and then do my ice bath and then eat a breakfast that I prepared. It's just this whole thing. I think what people just need to recognize is that a 10-minute walk 2 or 3 times a day is plenty. It's enough to get many good steps in. You get to clear your head a little bit, whether that's walking around outside, even just walking in the office. Hey, I'm going to go up and down the flight of steps 5 times and take a phone call and talk to my dad, who I haven't talked to in 2 months. That to me is health. It's recognizing that we just need to add it and sprinkle it in throughout our day. If it's walking 2 or 3 times a day, and then maybe I bring my lunch every day because I care about myself. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy or special. It's just a home cooked meal that, I know is going to be better for me than eating out 5 times a week. I think those are some of the most actionable things we can do. And then creating that community aspect too. So many of my hustler patients who are just out there grinding day in and day out, they're eating lunch, they're on their phone, and they're firing away at emails, and they're taking calls at the same time. And I don't know if you know this, but what that does to your digestion is just destroys it, right?
I feel seen right now.
I feel seen too, because we all do it, and I do. I'm probably the worst offender of that, but I tell patients all the time, look, you need 20 minutes by yourself or with a friend to just eat and eat slowly and be conscious about it. And it's amazing. People with even digestive issues, that can like quickly solve things just by slowing that part down.
Thank you for giving like such clear action and remembering the connection. I think that's something that I've struggled with, is keeping connected in my life of hustle. Instead of responding to another email or my team, like call my friend or like connect with your family. So I appreciate that reminder of connection and connection outside of your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything that I didn't ask you today that you wish I would have, or you want to leave the audience with?
No. I mean, I think it's great. Again, I guess I would maybe leave with, I'm so overwhelmingly happy that, my wife and I found you guys. The Kickstart Accounting team has just been absolutely insanely good. It is so cool to see other people. It's literally like, oh my gosh, they're doing what I'm doing in healthcare. Like you already said, they're shaking the industry up. They're providing like really efficient and helpful and encouraging people in my community of the things that I can't do well by myself. I think that's it, right? Is we have to be able to, the things that you're not good at, you have to be able to give that up to someone else. And it's challenging. I think ask for help is the most challenging thing in the world, but you guys absolutely just crush it. I mean, it's amazing what you guys have done. It truly makes me like, okay, there's so much we can do here as a community of entrepreneurs and small business owners, but also people who recognize that the industry just needs a little shift. And you guys are totally doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. It's always hard to take a compliment. So I'm just going to say thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Where can the audience learn more about you and stay in touch?
Yeah. We have a website, Apollo Health OP. It stands for Apollo Health Optimization.com. where you can find a lot of information. We have some YouTube videos and blog posts and stuff like that. We're on Instagram, which would link through the website, but it's Apollo_health_optimization. We have again just a lot of tidbits on exactly what we do, because it's confusing. People are like, functional medicine, what does that even mean? So we really kind of try to speak to that and educate people before they come in. So
awesome. We will link all of that in the show notes. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Danielle.
But if you enjoyed today's episode, I asked for you to do one thing in return. I would love if you could like and subscribe and share this podcast episode with one other person who can use this information. I am looking forward to our podcast next week. We'll see you there.